right to return to your country, denial of the right to a nationality, and denial of the right to freedom of movement, and denial of the right of a residence. This is verbatim what the Israeli government does. So it's not an issue of, is it like South Africa, is it not like South Africa? It's actually not like South Africa. It is worse than apartheid South Africa. So we use that word legally. And again, I'm not the one saying it's worse than apartheid South Africa. Archbishop Desmond Tutu was the one who said, when he visited, that what he is witnessing in the land of Palestine is worse than political apartheid in South Africa. So there is a crime of apartheid, and we are asking for it to be ended throughout the land of Palestine, which is inclusive of the state of Israel. So when people ask me, do I support Israel's right to exist? I don't even know what that means. Do I support a state's right to exist? No. So long as Israel exists under a form of apartheid, no, I do not support its right to exist. Absolutely, and I will not be ashamed to say it. Does that mean I want Israeli Jews to be thrown into the sea? No. It does mean that I want human rights to be applied equally and unconditionally to all the people, which means we have a right to return to our villages. And the only reason that is given to deny Palestinians their right of return is because we either believe in Jesus Christ or the Prophet Muhammad. That's it. And when you put it in that language, how can it be looked upon in any other way other than discrimination? And the reasons, and we go back, why did the Israelis commit these crimes against Palestinians in Gaza? Why have the Israelis committed these crimes against Palestinians in the West Bank and Jerusalem and Haifa and Yafa and all of our other villages? It's for one simple reason, according to their language. When you get to have the arrogance of a fascist state, you get to speak very clearly and honestly. And the Israelis are speaking wonderfully honestly. And they are facing something called a demographic threat. What does that mean, a demographic threat? It means that your mere existence is a threat to them. And if your mere existence is a threat to them, they have only one option: to kill you. So the mere fact that Palestinians exist means in their eyes that Palestinians resist. There is no separation in the logic of a Zionist between existence and resistance, because the mere fact that we exist means we resist. So we take it back to its very core, and I have to speak this bluntly. The core of it is Israel has to make a choice. It can either continue to live as a Jewish state, or it can live democratically. It can either continue to live as a Jewish state, or it can live peacefully. One cannot have a system of policy that is in itself an imposition of discrimination and claim to be democratic. It simply does not work. It doesn't make a difference if it's a Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, atheist state. It doesn't make a difference. I'm not being anti-Semitic here. It's simply an issue of logic. You cannot have a nation based on any religion and claim to be democratic. One. Two, you cannot have a nation based on any religion and claim to be peaceful, because then your raison d'être, your whole construct is getting rid of the other by any means possible, be it economic destruction, which is a crime, be it expulsion, which is a crime, or be it killing and justifying our murder because we resist. So we have to recognize that is the core. That is the language that we need to use. And we must not mince our words, because mincing our words and apologizing for our words implies that we are saying that Palestinians do not deserve all their human rights. We have been told to compromise for way too long. Noam Chomsky says our right of return is asking too much. And that's the same language that was used against African Americans. It's the same language that's been used against people of color in this country, be it Latin Americans, be it others. Don't ask so much. Isn't enough? We're no longer slaves. No, by God, it's not enough. It's not enough. So how do we do it? How do we do it? Not only do we use our narrative powerfully and correctly and without any apologies, but we use the tools that are afforded to us so long as we are not in Palestine. And the tools that are afforded to us here in this country are several. First and foremost, boycott. Boycott has become such a powerful weapon that the Israeli government itself considers us to be equivalent to the resistance. I have to say this. The Israeli government considers there's two networks. There's the resistance network that they define as Hamas and Hezbollah. And there's another network that they define as the delegitimization network. Because boycott means we are delegitimizing Israel as a normal state. We are boycotting it because it's not normal to be an apartheid, settler, colonialist, racist state. We will not have normal relations with them, so we're delegitimizing them. The Israeli government considers the boycott movement to be of the same strength as Hamas and Hezbollah. And I thank them for that compliment. So they consider us to be a powerful force. Others consider us to be a powerful force. The Economist recently stated that the boycott movement has become so strong. They specifically said in The Economist, BDS has begun to grab the attention of some of the world's largest financial institutions. You have banks that are pulling out of Israel because of us. Banks that are pulling out of Israel. You have SodaStream that for several consecutive months has not been able to have one profit increase. And they're blaming it on inventory. No, it's because of us. There's so many examples I can give you of economic boycott showing its strength. Numerous examples that I can go into in the Q&A. But that's one aspect. Just recently, trade unions in Ireland are calling for the boycott of Israeli goods. Ireland's largest grocery store has withdrawn Israeli products from them. The largest British trade union has recently came out and asked for BDS. Turkish unions are asking for the same. The National Union of Students in the United Kingdom, which represents more than 600 student unions, passed a resolution recently for the boycott of companies that support Israel. This is huge, and this is just in 1 week. Just in 1 week. And I can tell you more. That's the economic boycott, but we don't stop there. Because everything is political, and there's this other myth that the personal is separate from the political, but the personal by God is political. So we have a cultural boycott. That means performers that choose to perform in Israel are not welcome, and we give them a hard time. And we support performers such as Roger Waters, Pink Floyd, who wrote the only song of Pink Floyd that I actually remember, which is The Wall. That's the only song of Pink Floyd that I remember. Okay. He is one of the largest ambassadors for a cultural boycott. We have had an increase of celebrities during this latest onslaught that have come out very strongly in support of Palestinians. Some of them are surprising. I mean, Selena Gomez is surprising for her to come out. Mark Ruffalo has come out. John Cusack has come out. Numerous celebrities who previously had not spoken about Palestine have come out and said what the Israelis are doing is wrong. Okay, we build on that. We increase the celebrity portfolio that's asking for a cultural boycott. That means we not only pressure those who go to perform there, but we pressure any Israeli dance troupe, singer, etc. that wants to perform here because they are ambassadors of the state of Israel. And we say, no, you're not welcome here. We're not going to welcome your dances, your teams, your athletes, nothing. It's a full cultural boycott. That is what's needed. And then we have an academic boycott. And here is where some people start to feel really sensitive because we believe in something called academic freedom. And as a professor, I believe in it too. And it's because I believe in academic freedom that I call for an academic boycott. Because as we know in this country, freedom is only a privilege when it's not extended to everyone. We don't have academic freedom in Israel. Not only is it denied to Palestinians, it's denied to those courageous Israelis that speak out against the Israeli military. So in the name of academic freedom, we ask for an academic boycott of Israeli institutions. And we ask for an academic boycott of Israeli institutions because you have Israeli institutions that support the Israeli military. And they support them so strongly that the Tel Aviv University recently said students that serve in the Israeli offensive forces, there's nothing defensive about the terrorist state. Students that serve in the Israeli offensive forces get 1 year of free tuition. So they're simply saying they're part and parcel of the military-industrial complex in Israel. Fantastic. We will boycott them too. So we're asking for economic, cultural, academic boycott. Full. And we are supported by a small group of courageous Israelis called Boycott from Within. Particularly led by a man that I would be proud to call a comrade, Israeli historian Ilan Pappé, who in contrast to Israeli historian Benny Morris, both of whom recognize that every Israeli village and city was built on our villages and our cities, Benny Morris justifies ethnic cleansing and genocide, and Benny Morris called for ethnic cleansing against the Palestinians in Gaza. Ilan Pappé doesn't. Ilan Pappé recognizes that Israel needs help to break its apartheid and to end its discrimination. And that's why he calls for a full boycott against the state of Israel. And we need to recognize this. It wasn't the economic boycott that broke political apartheid in South Africa. It was the isolation and the shame that was given to the political apartheid in South Africa that broke it, along with, and I will say this, the armed resistance in South Africa. Nelson Mandela was not always a freedom fighter in the eyes of the US government. He was a terrorist. So when they call us terrorists, I don't mind. Put me in the same bag with Nelson Mandela. That is fine. We also ask for sanctions again, an arms embargo. And again, here we need to realize who our friends are. And very clearly, Latin Americans are our friends. El Salvador, Chile, Peru, Brazil, Ecuador. All we call their ambassadors. Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Uruguay, Paraguay suspended free trade agreement talks with Israel. And then you have this small, tiny island of the Maldives that proved to be the most courageous of all countries by actually cancelling previously agreed upon bilateral trade agreements with Israel and saying no. There is strength in small sizes. So we work on that. And while we're working on that, we also pay attention to our activists and our comrades here in the United States, because we are denied academic freedom in this country. And we cannot be calling for academic freedom there through academic boycott and not support professors here that are getting fired because they are speaking in the name of justice. You have one professor who just lost his job yesterday, Dr. Stephen Salata, a Palestinian who lost his job because he was tweeting in opposition to the slaughter of our children, and he was justifiably and rightfully saying that Zionism is what is increasing anti-Semitism. And he lost his job. And it becomes incumbent upon us to put pressure on the University of Illinois to reinstate him. And I would urge you to do that, and I'll give you the phone number and the emails and the Q&A for you to be calling the Chancellor, emailing the Chancellor, and letting them know. And we do have the power to do this, because all too often we think that we're small, but I'll give you one small example of how strong we can be once we believe in our strength. NBC, again, not freedom, not free speech, not democracy now. NBC had this great reporter in Gaza by the name of Ayman Muhyiddin. He was one of the witnesses to the massacre of 4 boys. Deliberate targeting of those boys by missiles. And he wrote about it and spoke about it so eloquently that NBC decided to move him out of Gaza and replace him with Richard Engels. It took 2 days for them to bring him back. Why? Because we protested. Didn't take much. We didn't close anything down. We just called and wrote and called and wrote. And I actually was quite surprised that we were that strong. So that means people can be moved. We can give him back his job. And we need to be doing that. We need to be looking out for our comrades. We need to be doing that all the time. And we need to be connecting the struggles. Here in North Carolina, elsewhere in the United States, we need to be connecting the struggles. So if we are in solidarity with Palestinians because we are opposed to the eradication of the human rights of Palestinians, because of the dehumanization that we have been taught by Hollywood, which is part and parcel of the military-industrial complex, by the way, part and parcel of it, because of the media, because of the generation in this country that we have been taught that people of color need to accept what are given to them, and European Americans, otherwise known as white Americans, need to stop apologizing for their privileges. No. We connect the struggles. That means what is happening to Palestinian Americans, to Palestinians specifically, is very, very similar to what has been happening to African Americans in this country. We need to connect the struggles. And it is in the name of solidarity with Palestinians that I stand here and I oppose the privatization of the prison industrial complex in this country. Because it is a theft of African American men, just as the occupation is a theft of our men. So we change the narrative. We speak of liberty, we speak of equality, we speak it with pride, we speak it without apology, and we speak it getting our strength from the Palestinian resilience in Gaza, in West Bank, throughout the land of Palestine. The most resilient. Thank you. speaking wonderfully honestly. And they are facing something called a demographic threat. What does that mean, a demographic threat? It means that your mere existence is a threat to them. And if your mere existence is a threat to them, they have only one option: to kill you. So the mere fact that Palestinians exist means in their eyes that Palestinians... That's it. And when you put it in that language, how can it be looked upon in any other way other than discrimination? And the reasons, and we go back, why did the Israelis commit these crimes against Palestinians in Gaza? Why have the Israelis committed these crimes against Palestinians in the West Bank and Jerusalem and Haifa and Yafa and all of our other villages? It's for one simple reason, according to their language. When you get to have the arrogance of a fascist state, you get to speak very clearly and honestly. And the Israelis are speaking. What he is witnessing in the land of Palestine is worse than political apartheid in South Africa. So there is a crime of apartheid, and we are asking for it to be ended throughout the land of Palestine, which is inclusive of the state of Israel. So when people ask me, do I support Israel's right to exist? I don't even know what that means. Do I support a state's right to exist? No. So long as Israel exists under a form of apartheid, right to return to your country, denial of the right to a nationality, and denial of the right to freedom of movement, and denial of the right of a residence. This is verbatim what the Israeli government does. So it's not an issue of, is it like South Africa, is it not like South Africa? It's actually not like South Africa. It is worse than apartheid South Africa. So we use that word legally. And again, I'm not the one saying it's worse than apartheid South Africa. Archbishop Desmond Tutu was the one who said, when he visited, that no, I do not support its right to exist. Absolutely, and I will not be ashamed to say it. Does that mean I want Israeli Jews to be thrown into the sea? No. It does mean that I want human rights to be applied equally and unconditionally to all the people, which means we have a right to return to our villages. And the only reason that is given to deny Palestinians their right of return is because we either believe in Jesus Christ or the Prophet Muhammad.